take us in a little theme here. We went from don't ask for anything in return and shake hands. And now we get a great question here. Why is an army important? And we're asking that in Britain at the moment because we don't know what our role is in the world. And I was at the Army Museum recently, and there's a figure on the wall there that says that the Afghan War, just the Afghan War for Britain, cost £39 billion. That is the exact amount, pretty much, of what we're due to pay to leave the European Union. So wars cost money, and the Iraq War, I think you didn't mention it directly, but you talked about ignorance. And that was a war of ignorance, where misinformed populations went in to invade Iraq on false premises, because we were ill-informed. So thank you very much for that. Let's have a round of applause. And now we're moving on to Mr. Basantaraj Kunwar, who knows a lot. He knows about poverty. He knows about conflict, as I said. You know about drugs and addiction. You know that grassroots horror of humanity, that basic thing, and I want you to bring that into this debate here. Thank you.
All the wonderful people from the world, it's Namaste from Nepal, from the birthplace of Buddha and the country of Mount Everest. This is Basant Kumar. I was a senior police officer of Nepal, and I used to believe that the peace comes from jail, prison. Peace comes from God, from strong law. I wrote that, I read that 2% of the people are bad. They burn to do the bad thing. But 2% are good. They burn for making the society peace, prosperous. So there is always fight between good and bad. Who is ruling the politics? Good or bad? Who is ruling the business? Good or bad? Who is ruling the society? Who is ruling the NGOs are good or bad? The society will be according to that. So I hope that once the name peace comes, wherever I used to go, because I am a human being, but I am most threatened by other human beings. The animal are not my threat. The insects are not my threat. Threat are other human beings who do the business, who do the social work, who run the country. So this forum could be used as that. Let us give us peaceful life. That we don't want to harm anyone, but we want to survive peacefully. The God has given us 100 years. Allow us to live up to 100 years, please. Then somebody comes and fire the gun and we finished. Somebody does the accident, we finished. Somebody comes with the drugs, we finished. Some produce the chemical, some produce the weapon, we finished. So from this forum, maybe it's a small forum in one of the room, but I want to request the world, let us allow us to survive up to 100 years or 70 years, whatever the God has given us the life. Drug is being one of the biggest threat for the humanity now, everybody know. But there are some businessmen of the drug, because the biggest turnover of the business belongs to drugs. So there is a person who is doing all these things, and he trapped on Europe. He became a drug user. And when he went back, the father was, they owned one house, a building, a beautiful building, and this boy went back to the country, and with weapon, he told the father, the building should be shifted in my name. It has to be in my name. When father and mother said no, then he started beating. They were so afraid, they hand over the house to the son. So once they hand over the house to the son, Within 7 days, he sold in 25% of the value. Only 25%. Then 1.5 months, he vanished. The parents doesn't know where he went. But the parents moved from city to the village because there was no house. And after 1.5 months, that son again went to the village asking for money. And the old father and mother say, we have no money now. Then she was having some ornament. So he started snatching ornament from the ear, from the nose, he started snatching it. So the mother was full of blood. And he went and he did the drugs. And unfortunately, while he was injecting the drug, he died. He died 300 kilometers far from the village. And 2-3 days, police could not identify the body. Once they identified, they informed to the village that your son is dead. Then how to come from the village? The father, with some relatives, they came to the city. It was already made. After that, they decided we cannot take this dead body to the village. So let us decompose here. So they decompose. What do you say? What is the exact word? Cremation. Yeah. When the father went to the house, the mother said, "Where is my son?" The father said, he is dead. We did this, and body was settled. He said, "No, till my son will not come, I will not eat food." How could we bring the son? Because he is dead. No, he was a very good guy. Whenever I used to work, he used to support me. Till the son will not come, I will not eat anything, even not water. Then they called me because I work for the drug rehabilitation. And 6 days I went to the village. And I tried to convince to the mother that your son will not come back now. He died. He said, "No, I have not seen his body. He will come." And 29 days he died without taking water, without taking food. She died. But the person who sold the drugs might be becoming rich. The person who is selling the weapon might be becoming rich. So now, I was a police officer. As I told that, I used to think that law, weapon can control the society and make the peace. Now I started realizing that man is not a body, man is a soul. Thinking about good or thinking about bad, it depends upon the thought process. And thought process doesn't come from the body. It comes from the soul. We perceive the thing that comes from the soul. We do the decision, right and wrong, that comes from soul. Whenever we use the intelligence that this should not be done, then it comes from soul. If the soul is blocked, then the problem starts. Earn money, but don't harm the people. I give one of the examples of the Ramdev Baba is in India. People know about it, that he does the yoga. And through the yoga, he wants to give a long life. But he is one of the richest person in India now. Even the urine of the cow, he sold. He sells the urine cow and a lot of money. So what is the fundamental thing is that you can earn the money by not harming others. Even if you support for the survival, you can earn a lot of money. That is the example. No need to only produce such a things that can destroy others. You can be a businessman by helping in the survival. Survival for yourself, survival for the family, survival for the society, survival for living things, survival for all the buildings or nature. So through this forum, this is my first time. I want to thank Mr. Sarge from President Sarge. So this is my first time that I got opportunity to speak something from the land of peace, from the land of Himalaya, mountains. I request that let us start a new era where the people can peacefully live their life. Although they might be poor, but poor and happiness can go together. Poor and happiness can go together. But threat, insecurity, fear, and peace cannot go together. Let us not create a fear. Nepal is a very small country with very rich custom, tradition, values. And if you go to Nepal, you will see everybody laughing. Everybody is ready to help you. But somebody polluted it. Somebody polluted from outside. Let us not pollute it. Every country is beautiful. Every people are beautiful. According to nature, some are white, some are black, some are tall, but they all are soul. Beautiful person. We have to see closely how beautiful they are, how they laugh, how is their teeth, how they behave, how their eyes. We don't see anyone, each other, and make the perception that this is like this is like this is of this religion, this is of this group, this is of this academics, this is of this scholar. Let's start. Humanity, what a beautiful word. I was a police officer. In fact, it was not my duty. I think I am changing gradually by the contact of all like you, good people of the planet. Gradually I am being modifying. I don't know, it's right or wrong, but I started realizing that man is not a body, man is a soul. The source of the soul, the peace is in soul. Let's make happy to the soul. Thank you very much.
Om Gyanatimirandasya Gyananjanaslakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave. It's a great honor to be here today with such an inspired group of people. So first of all, I want to thank Abdul from the World Humanitarian Drive, and also Mr. Robin Marsh from the Universal Peace Federation for bringing us all together to participate in this vision for a better future. What is this vision? It's a vision in which commerce, culture, and spirituality collaborate together for the upliftment of the entire human race. I have no experience whatsoever in commerce and investment. I apologize. My entire life, since leaving college, I spent in a monastery in India studying Sanskrit and meditating, and then after that traveling around the world and giving lectures on the Vedic philosophy. But just last week I came from Bolivia, and there in Bolivia I gave a lecture at the University of Military Engineering, and there the soldier, his name was Colonel Jose Costas, and he was the director of research and development at that university. And he was telling me that he was part of a peacekeeping mission in Sudan, in Africa, and at that time he was working with soldiers from India. And he said in those exchanges with the soldiers from India, they were saying, well, we believe in the Bhagavad Gita, in the teaching of Krishna, that sometimes force is necessary to protect the good people. It's necessary to protect the good people. And then he told me that in Bolivia, they have just recently added to their constitution that their military cannot be engaged in any international interventions. But their military is only for keeping peace within their own nation. So if every nation of the world would add to their constitution that they cannot be engaged in international intervention, then what would happen? It would be much more peaceful than it is now, that's for sure. So, these are some nuts and bolts, but today I want to make a contribution. I'm seeing that everyone has a very important piece of the jigsaw here, and I want to add, if you'll allow me, my piece, which is somewhat of a meta vision of all the various points. And that is that you can have commerce and you can have culture, but without spirituality, a civilization cannot have enduring peace. And there's an important reason for that. And the reason is, without a spirituality, that is a practice that everyone does daily, and it may be different because there are different approaches to spirituality, but without a spirituality that makes your heart have fortitude, then you become morally weak. And when the nation becomes morally weak, then they become corrupt, and there's a disintegration of civilization due to a rise of mistrust and intolerance. So commerce, essential. Culture, essential. But spirituality, also essential. It is the foundation. Without that, everything else will gradually disintegrate. So now when I say spirituality, for many persons, that's an extremely vague term. So I think we can sum it up in one word, and that is teleology. Teleology means that everything has a purpose. And so life, humanity, has a purpose. Human life is a journey. And the vehicle for that journey is education. And along that journey, the first city we come to is peace. And the next city we come to is happiness. Without peace, no one can be happy. And the final destination, where the teleology, the purpose of our life is leading us, is, would anyone like to hazard a guess? Love for God. If one has love for God, then one can love every single part of his creation. So the Sanskrit Vedas of India say, Swastyastu Visvasra Kala Prasidatam. May everyone's life be auspicious and happy. And may the wicked people also be happy. No spirit of vengeance at all. They should somehow find a way in which we should find a way in which they can be reformed. Now, spirituality is often considered by many persons to be a very vague word. And so I want to clarify that point. That spirituality is a search for truth. So truth is not a fantasy and truth is not unreal. Truth is also not a plural. Truth is truth. There's no Hindu truth, Buddhist truth, Islamic truth, Christian truth. All are searching to discover the same truth. So we stand at a point in history which is has unprecedented opportunities because of the advancement in communication for dialogue between people from different backgrounds. Because of the advancement of technology also to investigate the truths of the ancient wisdom traditions. And I'm telling you that science, far from disproving the wisdom of Islam, of Hinduism, of Buddhism, of Christianity, rather, science actually confirms and supports those wisdom traditions. Now, for example, I want to give a brief example. When people think of happiness in the modern day, very often they think of pleasure, to get some kind of stimulation. But the wisdom traditions, they tell us, no, that's not happiness. The happiness that you feel just by tasting things, trying to enjoy things, whether it's drugs or alcohol or any type of, now people are very involved in, millions of people are making so much money from violent and pornographic media as well. So people are looking for happiness through pleasure. But pleasure doesn't give happiness. And all the wisdom traditions have said this. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said, Yehi samsparshada bhoga dukkha yaunaya evate. Adyantavanta kontaya nateshu ramate buddha. That the happiness derived from physical pleasures is actually the cause of suffering. So, this is not a new project. In the medieval times, and our Imam will confirm this fact, in the medieval times there was the golden age of Islam.
Yes.
And great academics like Averroes, they studied deeply philosophy, and they were supporting their own religious beliefs philosophically and scientifically by going through the logic and natural science of Aristotle. Is it correct? Yes. Also in the Jewish tradition, Maimonides in that period was also studying the works of Aristotle, and Aquinas also. And what they all have in common is teleology, that life is purposeful, whereas the modern materialistic worldview is that everything is made of atoms, everything is made of particles which have no purpose. They're moving about randomly. And that idea, mechanistic view of the world, developed in the so-called Enlightenment. And since that time, the studies of the classical world and the study of the science of teleology, purposefulness, has been, by and large, very much lost. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. So, Aquinas, all these, in Judaism, in Islam, in Christianity, they were looking towards Aristotle. The ancient Greeks, their formal logic was preceded in India by the logic of Gautam in 500 BC. And of course, his philosophy was based on the Vedanta. So the project of developing a natural science to understand the purpose of life is an ancient project. And today, with communication, with transportation, yes, we have the great opportunities to complete that project. So, universal spiritual science, even though there are many different religions, and they disagree on certain fine points, but they all have certain things in common. First of all, the immateriality of consciousness, the soul. Secondly, the existence of God. The belief in the afterlife, that you can't just be a criminal and die and get away with it. And there is a divine justice. A belief in a lifestyle of moderation and self-restraint. A belief in the importance of moral development. The importance of family values, humility, compassion, and devotion to God. So amongst the various religions, there's much more that unites us together. There's much more that separates us all from the materialistic worldview. So now I'm coming to my conclusion, and that is, what can you do? You are involved in commerce and investment around the world. And as our friend, the Imam, has mentioned, that all religions have the idea that it's a responsibility of every human being to do tithing. To give, in some religions, 10%, he mentioned 2.5%, in some religions, 10% of the profits for the common good of humanity. But it shouldn't be squandered. It should be utilized in a way that's very effective. And I consider one of the most effective ways is education. That there's spiritual education, to go beyond the materialistic and mechanistic education, to revive the classical perspectives of life, which were very dear to Aristotle, to Averroes, to Maimonides, to Thomas Aquinas, to Vyasadeva, to rehabilitate the prestige of the classical worldview, which imbues everyone with a life which is full of meaning. So education is extremely important. Another thing is very important. You can see that the media today is promoting hedonism. It's promoting immorality everywhere. So what can we do? Censorship is not an option. Yeah. Censorship is not an option. But investing in family-friendly media, investing in media which nourishes society instead of breaking society apart. We can see, perhaps you know this famous book, The God Delusion. You see that the media promoted the God delusion everywhere. And then after that, many very intellectual academic refutations of each point of this book were printed, but they had less than 5% of the media coverage than the atheistic, materialistic point of view. So we can see that throughout the world, in Hinduism, Christianity, Muslim, Islam, and Buddhism, there is a meditation. To take some time out every day to chant the prayers to God, to meditate and pray to God. And I just want to complete with one last point, and that is, with charity, with giving money to the fulfillment of the upliftment of society, one should give without expecting anything in return. And in spirituality also, one should pray, but without expecting anything in return. Only for the pleasure of God, and that love, service for the divine being, out of pure love. That is the final destination of the journey of human life. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.